Hey guys, this is Jill and Darren with Stoic Events Podcast.
And we're talking all things related to life, relationships, and overall well-being. This is the Stoic Events Podcast.
Stoic Events Podcast, welcome back everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Darren.
And I'm Jill.
And we are Stoic Events.
Podcast.
Stoic Events Podcast, that's right. You found us. You landed on the right spot today, I promise you that.
Yeah, for sure.
Jill Jones, we've been married for 30 years. How are you?
Better. I've been battling a bunch of different sicknesses, I feel like, the last month, but I'm better now.
Probably because we're running like dogs, man. We're busy in the wedding industry. We're not going to get into that, but we're busy.
And it's also this weather here in California, man. Like, we can't seem to catch a break. It's either really cold, rainy, or it's really hot. So
yeah, I went from like hoodies and beanies to
shorts and tank tops.
Yeah. literally wanting to jump in the pool. So we're about there.
Fun times.
Fun times, man. What do you want to talk about today?
What do you want to talk about today?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of people out there that really got a lot of pain inside of them, and I think it really hinders them. You know, I can only speak from experience. But they need real healing. I think that people are out here really trying to look for something to help them get through what they've been through, and it's just not working, maybe, right?
Well, I think sometimes it's perspective, too, because I feel like everything that you go through that causes you pain, you learn from.
Yeah. Hopefully.
You know, most of the time you learn something.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know, even if you're not looking for it, you learn something.
Yeah.
You know, you went through it for a reason. You know, we've talked about this way early on when we first started this podcast about how long ago? A year and a half, 2 years now?
About a year and a half, yeah.
And it was talking about how, you know, everything happens for you. It doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same concept. Life comes with pain. That's just life.
You have to believe that, though. You have to believe that mantra, so to say, right? You just can't think that that's just going to happen for you. That's a mindset. You know?
Well, I heard it put this way today, actually. That you have to change the narrative in your head. So, like, if you're going to ask, like, if you go and Google something. So if you go Google, you know, is drinking coffee good for my eyesight? You're going to find a bunch of stuff that's going to say coffee's good for your eyesight. But then if you Google, is coffee bad for my eyesight? You're going to find a bunch of stuff that says, so whatever you Google, you're going to find it. And it's your brain works very similar to that. Yep. So, you know, like if you are going through something bad and you're like, oh, I'm going through this because I did this, that, and I'm a failure, or I'm this person, I'm that person, then that's what you're going to believe. Yeah. Then that's how you're going to come out of it. Yeah. If you are going through something and you're like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And you start focusing on what you're supposed to learn. Well, maybe this is happening to me because I need to learn to be more grateful, or whatever, you know, whatever it may be.
Then you start having that mindset more so.
Well, it's like, you know, we do events, right? We have a venue, and every event we learn something. We're not going into it thinking we're going to learn something, you know, but we always do. And it's even if it's the smallest little thing, we learn something like, oh, okay, we need to nip this thing in the bud before that happens the next time. We'll just have to deal with it now.
Yeah. And it's always the thing that frustrates us, almost always. Because you get really frustrated over something, and if you're going to face it again, instead of getting frustrated over and over, we say, put that on the list. We don't want to address this again.
Right.
You know, back to what you were saying, the mindset thing, I think that's called circled reasoning, right? Where you think a certain way, it might be negative, but then that's about how you react to a situation negatively, which makes you feel negative. It's like drugs or drinking, right? You feel bad, so you do something, and then you have regret, so you feel bad, then you do something, then you have regret, so you feel bad. I mean, it's an endless loop. Yeah. It's like circled reasoning, but yeah, we got to get out of that. I got to get out of that mindset where you got to get a new way of thinking to start healing from that. So let's talk about healing, right? I think it's such a critical thing to talk about. Because there's people hurting. So let's just start right here. Healing, I think, is a choice. I would argue, almost mandate that it is a choice.
How so?
You know, because you have to decide when you're done hurting. You have to get to a point where I'm done with this and I have to do something about it, or you're just gonna endlessly go in this repetitive loop.
So you mean like setting healthy boundaries?
Yeah. but also understanding that you're going to have to go through some pain for healing, right? Because pain and healing are married. They're married together. And you can't heal unless you honestly hit the pain level first so that you can address it. Right? Does that make sense? So, what do you say about that?
No, I agree with that. I just think life can be painful. Life can be hard. There's a lot of things that come our way, and there's a lot of things that we can't control. And we do need to heal from that. But I also think that there's a flip side to that where sometimes you got to sit in that for a moment, you know, and not be in such a rush to get things back to normal. Sometimes you have to process, and it takes time to process, and everybody's processing time is different.
Yeah, that's huge. Pain's not the problem, though.
No, pain is the byproduct.
Yeah. And you have to understand, I heard a good analogy one time about that, right? What you're saying, you have to address it, you have to look at it. It's like if you have trauma in your life, a lot of times we have pain from trauma, right? Maybe it's a childhood or a divorce or a bad relationship or something, but your trauma is like a book on the shelf, right? And it might be behind you. But you're living your life, and the book falls off the shelf, and all of a sudden one day you have to address the trauma, whatever it is, right? But you don't want to deal with it, so you just put it back on the shelf.
Which I think is what a lot of people do.
Yeah, I did that for you. I think we all do that. But then eventually it's going to fall off the shelf, and you're going to have to open it, look at it again. Oh, it's my trauma. I don't want to deal with that. Go put it back on the shelf. But the best way to deal with it is to actually open the book and get to know the character, get to know its attributes, how it responds in the story, get to really know the character face to face. Then you can understand how to combat it, how to have defense against it, and really understand how that thing moves against you. But if you don't study it like an enemy.
Yeah, but I ultimately think that sometimes when we're going through something like that, we have to get out of our stinking thinking.
Well, yeah.
Because you're going to stay there. Because what's your natural defense when you start feeling pain and sadness?
To revert.
To stay there and cry and wallow in your sorrow and, focus on woe is me. I mean, some people, they might revert, but then they're not really dealing with the issue at hand.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away. It's just going to it'll resurface in a different way.
Yeah.
Potentially the same way, but potentially a different way as well. But you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You have to be able to, whether it be talking to somebody or going to a therapist or writing. We always talk about writing stuff down.
But I think the point is that you have to face it, right? How you started this conversation. You have to turn and face it. And if you don't face your pain, you're never going to heal.
Yeah.
You're never going to heal from it. You're just going to continuously run from it. You're going to continuously have a feeling about pain and about how you're scared about pain, or you don't want to deal with the pain, but you have to face the pain for the change.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people get past their pain, or they think they've gotten past their pain, and what they've really done is buried it inside of themselves, which then creates blockages for them to be able to continue to move forward. For instance, I know somebody that told us one time, and I won't mention any names, but told us one time that they wanted to create this program and do this thing in their business. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. You really should go for it. But just as they were about ready to launch it, their mom had passed away. And it was like a horrible, horrible pain for this person, and really hard for this person to go through that. Therefore, the program never took off. Because the person was dealing with their pain so much, it prevented them from doing the thing that they knew they wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
And they still have that passion within them.
Yeah.
But that wall is still there because that pain is still there, and they haven't really dealt with that pain. They just moved past it and kept going with life. And to look at this person on the outside, you think they've got it all together and they're happy and fine. But when you know the story of why this person didn't continue to go through this thing that they wanted to do, you realize, they're harboring that pain. Yeah. And that pain now is preventing them from doing the thing that really they're passionate about in their life and being successful.
Yeah, it's tough. That's really tough. I think a lot of people are like that. I think, maybe somebody died, right? Somebody could have passed, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I was just so hindered in my life. That happened to us. We've had a death that could have potentially done that to us, really hindered us to the point of it's just such a tragedy that it's like a car accident where you stop and you stare at the tragedy and you can't believe it, that you can't get out of it.
Well, and there's some
really
things
tough.
like that
Really,
situation,
really tough.
which we won't get into that. That'll be a topic for another time, but that rocked our whole family.
Yeah.
And it rocked our whole family for a long time and still quite honestly does to some degree. It kind of changed things a little bit, but I think that when you go through something that's painful like that, you just have to take your time, give yourself grace, and then try to figure out what you can pull from that in a positive light.
Yeah.
And transform it into something that's not quite as painful.
Yeah, you have to face it though.
Yeah, you do.
That's the biggest thing. Is like,
Well, you have to be ready to face it.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
The situation for us, the big, huge tragedy for us, I had a hard time facing it. I didn't want to keep going. I just kind of sulked for a while, where your way of dealing with it was getting right back into the thick of life.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own way of dealing with it, their own path of dealing with it, and being able to overcome it and move on and keep going, and learn. But I think, sometimes, I know for me, the beginning of that, I didn't learn crap. I was just pissed. I went through all the emotions of sad, pissed, regret, wondering if I did something wrong, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went to the point where I was just so immensely sad, and then had to deal with the sadness, and then realize, okay, I need to change this narrative. I need to change the way I'm thinking, and I need to get back into life, living my life.
Yeah. So what would you say? How did you overcome that pain, and how do you feel like you were able to have the healing process and move forward, where other people prior to your story that you were talking about might have a little bit more harder time?
I went to therapy.
Yeah.
And the therapist gave me some really good pointers, because the narratives in your head will play tricks with you.
So good. So good.
Because you will hear all these things, as your brain's going to tell you all kinds of crazy things, like, well, you should have, or you shouldn't have done this.
Every day it does, huh?
Yeah.
Every
And
day
so
it does.
when you go and talk to somebody who's not necessarily connected to the situation, or even, I guess, sometimes people that are connected to the situation, they can be like, what? No, you can't think of it like that. You have to change the narrative in your head. And once you do that and you can accept that new narrative, it really helps you to start healing from that pain and getting back into what you need to do. Because pain is crippling.
Debilitating.
It can ruin your career.
Life.
It can ruin your relationships.
Yeah.
And pain, it comes in all different shapes, sizes, and boxes,
Well, let me insert this right here. I love this about pain. Pain is pain. I used to hold my pain in a higher regard than others and say, oh, we don't understand. You don't understand.
Right.
But pain is pain, man. And I think sometimes we hold our pain higher in regards to how we can interact with other people and say, oh, they don't understand how I feel. It's not true. Your pain is pain, man.
Well, and I think what a lot of people say is you don't understand because you have not gone through what I've gone through.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're exactly right. But that doesn't mean they don't understand the pain.
And the process of it all.
The process of getting through it.
Yeah.
I might not be able to understand the nitty-gritty details of exactly what you're going through, but I understand the actual pain itself.
Yeah.
And therefore, some of the things I can say to you can help you, possibly, if you allow me to do so.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to listen to the words that other people are saying around you and let them encourage you. Because sometimes people get into a spot where the pain is caused by themselves, by a regret that they have. Let's not talk about pain for a death. Let's talk about pain for other areas of life. You can have pain because you regret something that you did or didn't do. And sometimes you don't want someone to come encourage you because you want to be pissed off at yourself, which is so ridiculous, because you stay pissed off at yourself, what's going to happen? Nothing. You're going to stay pissed off at yourself.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to move forward, right? You're not going to make anything better. You're not going to add anything positive to anybody else. So sometimes it's hard to hear the positive things when you're so negative and down on yourself, that when someone says, no, you're a great person. No, do you know what I just did? Whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that happens a lot of times too. So it's you have to be open to receive. no matter how horrible you feel, whether it be about yourself or whether it be about some situation.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you're not open to receive, you're just hurting yourself the long haul, and you're never going to heal, right? If you don't face the pain, you will never heal. Mm-hmm. You just won't, and it's a choice to heal. And I think a lot of times we have people around us where we'll say, "Oh, how many times did you hear this growing up? This complete bullshit. Oh, you'll have to excuse this person. That's just the way they are."
Mm-hmm. That's funny because I've actually heard that my whole life, and I've used that my whole life.
Yeah. So that means, this guy's an asshole before he walks in the room, or I just like what do we? No, that means that somebody didn't heal, so they got mature and got some wisdom, so they were the most mature person in the room.
What do you mean by that?
That's a whole other story, but you have to heal, right? And if you don't heal, you're going to harbor a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, and that's all going to spew out of you. Mm-hmm. And let's reverse engineer that, as Jill says. If you have a lot of bitterness, a lot of stuff spewing out, those verbiages coming out of you, you have ungratefulness. You haven't healed. You're bitter. You're telling the world your story, right?
Without telling the world your story.
Without telling the world your story. Your wounds, our wounds, our physical wounds are bleeding out. Straight wounds bleeding out. And if you're silent about them, you're still bleeding. But if you say something about it and get help, you can stop the bleeding, right? And speaking from experience in my family, I've seen a lot of people bleed out their whole life because they haven't healed. They didn't want to heal. So that's why we're talking about this today, right? Mm-hmm. Wasted lives by not wanting to heal. And that's why we're going to address it, because even if you don't heal yourself, your other people are going to hurt around you.
Well, it goes back to what I always say is you are who you surround yourself by, right? So you don't want to be that person that no one wants to be surrounded by.
Because you're bleeding out.
Because you're bleeding out.
You got wounds, you know?
Right.
I got all these problems.
You don't want to be that Debbie Downer in the room, right? You want to be the one that comes in and everyone's like, yes, I'm glad this person's here because I know they're going to encourage me or they're going to be sweet or kind and I know we're going to have fun and we're going to laugh. You don't want someone coming and going, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, imagine this
Eeyore.
Yeah, imagine this analogy, right? Everybody's sitting around in the room and you got a wound, like you got stabbed in your abdomen. I'm holding it if you're not watching. And you're just holding this wound. You got this wound. Your whole life you got a wound. When you could just, instead of not addressing it, you could just, I gotta fix this, man. But you're holding this wound all the time. And you're leaking out. And everyone's watching you all the time. Are you okay? You're leaking out still. Oh, you got those problems, and make sure you're okay. I mean, it's enough is enough. You're bleeding out. Get some help. You help you.
That's the sad part, though, is I think that there are people that they don't even realize that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, because
they're walking around like this, like, oh, what?
They don't know.
Isn't everybody? They're all doing it.
Because you know what? It's everybody. Everybody has some sort of something that they're going through, but not everyone looks the part. You know, because some people can be like, what? I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm fine. Look at, I got a great husband. Yeah. I got great children. I got a beautiful home. I got a great, but really there's a lot of trauma that they didn't deal with. Maybe childhood trauma, maybe something that's as simple as, a regret that you had. It could be something very simple, but it's something that's really affecting you. And if you don't address it, or talk to somebody about it, it's and sometimes you don't have to talk to somebody about it. Sometimes you can just have some time alone to yourself and be like, Joe, what are you doing? Come on.
Let me add this, though, okay? You probably do have to talk to somebody about it. How about all of your people? Your people.
But what if you don't have any people?
You got your family. You have whoever you surround yourself with. They should be knowing that you're wounded and care that you're wounded. If you're listening to this right now, you care you're wounded, but your people should care you're wounded, and you should care that your people are wounded. And everyone's wounded out here. So it starts with what you always say, like, you are who you surround yourself with. Start looking at your group, look at your circle. If these people aren't helping you with your wounds, you need to find people to help you with your wounds.
Okay, let me clarify that really quick, because I feel like I agree with you 100%. I just feel like this doesn't mean that, okay, when you're hanging out with your people, you're not constantly spewing your wounds.
No.
Like, you don't have to constantly be talking about, like, oh, man, I got this wound and blah, 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 blah. Let your people just lift you up and love on you.
Absorb
Don't
each other.
you don't have to say anything. It doesn't mean that you're going to a therapy session every time you're getting together with your friends.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
To be like, hey, let me talk about this again, and I'm still dealing with this, and guys, I'm still, because they're not going to want to hang out.
We already talked about that in the last episode or two, about that drama all around you. You don't need all that.
No, but
I'm not suggesting that by any means.
But like, by how I'm understanding what you're saying is by letting your people heal you, it's by your people just loving on you, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily you opening up to them saying, this is what I'm dying
of. Absolutely. Yeah, you just need to be around your people and let your family, your people heal you. Well, I mean, that's part of it right there. You're so absorbed with what's going on. That's what I saw in my family a lot, right? They're just so absorbed by all their wounds that they didn't even see the beauty that was around them.
Well, and it's true, because there are times where I could be frustrated with you, or vice versa, you're frustrated with me. And we have family day every Sunday. We have our kids come over every Sunday with our grandkids, and we have dinner. Something we've done their whole life. And so nothing's changed since they're adults. But they come over, and we don't cancel a family Sunday unless someone's out of town, or we're out of town, or whatever. So, we still have them come over. And we're not going to show them that we're not getting along.
Of course.
And that we're frustrated with each other. But what happens is we're around all this high energy with our beautiful family, our beautiful grandkids. Everyone's laughing and playing and having fun. It's infectious.
Yeah.
Then before you know it, we're okay.
Yep, it's all gone.
The frustration we had with each other is gone. And by the end of the night, we're like, dude, I'm sorry.
Okay, but that's a great analogy, because you're talking about two people who don't have wounds on them, because we did the self-development and personal development to help ourselves heal. But this is what this whole episode's about. If you're not willing to heal, sometimes you can be in those environments and be the cancer in that environment.
Right, but I think though too, the people that don't want to heal can still get poured into that positivity just by being in that kind of environment.
They still have to receive it and want that.
Right. But they know they're going into that environment, so I would think that they would be okay with receiving that.
Well, my mom never did.
Okay.
So there's both sides of the spectrum, and we can get into all that.
I guess she never healed herself, but I don't feel like she was a Debbie Downer when we were all together as a family. She loved the baby sitting on her lap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, it's not like...
That's true. It can give you glimpses of
I'm sure
relief from that.
Yes. She never really healed herself.
Yeah.
She always carried her wounds very silently.
Yeah.
And it showed in her actions, but when people were together and she was around people, you never really, really knew unless you spent a long time with her.
Yeah, gotcha. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't heal, you're just going to hurt. You're going to bleed out, right? Mm-hmm. But the only way to heal is to face the pain, and the pain is the door to your healing. I heard that when I was doing a little bit of studying for this. I heard that it said, face the pain, it's the door. And it's so true. You have to face it. Like that analogy of the book falling off. It's just going to keep falling off. You're going to have to address it in the middle of the night. You're going to have to address it when you're driving in the car by yourself, or when that right song hits. You're going to address it the rest of your life.
Well, look, here's the thing, is if you go through life and you never have any pain or any ailment or any kind of tragedy, what are you learning?
Nothing.
You can't look at it like necessarily a blessing. That's not the right word to say. I don't even really know what the right word to say is, but everything that you go through is something that is potentially a learning.
Yeah.
A learning potential.
Yeah. You can learn from any loss. Just because you took a so-called loss, right? Maybe like you stub your toe. Oh, but you can learn from that, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't learn from that, you can stub your toe again.
Yeah. Like if you know there's a lip on that door and you keep stubbing your toe on it.
People get mad when something happens to them. Like maybe they broke their arm, or they had whatever. Oh, I can't believe this happened to me. Well, you learned from it, right? But that's what all life is. It's just experience.
Well, I think part of it, though, Darren, is, I don't know the percentage of how many people grow up in church or like a religious atmosphere, but I think quite a few, wouldn't you say?
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what the percentage is, but I know we grew up in religion, and I know that, we were taught heavily that what happened in our life was a byproduct of our actions. So, like, if something bad happened, we must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
When that wasn't necessarily the truth.
Oh, man, we could talk about that for a while.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that sometimes that's where people get stuck and hung up, not letting things go and releasing, because there's something in their subconscious that says, well, you must have done something wrong. You must have messed up somewhere for you to get this punishment. When in reality, it just is it's just a circle of events that happen, and you happen to be part of it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your fault. It doesn't necessarily mean you did something. Yeah. And I think that that's part of the healing process too, is realizing that the pain's going to come, but it doesn't mean you did something wrong. Doesn't mean it's your fault. The pain is not a byproduct of something you did wrong. And I think if you realize that, not all situations, some situations it is because you did something wrong.
Somewhere.
You know, but not all situations. And I think that sometimes people get themselves hung up on that of, okay, well, you know, this horrible tragedy happened in my family. What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What did I do wrong? Well, maybe you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter. You still have to heal from the wound, right?
You do.
It's a massive wound.
But I think that a lot of times people get stuck not going, even touching the healing process because they're so focused on what did I do wrong.
Okay, or here's another analogy I just thought of. Like when you have a big open wound on your arm or wherever, you're like, when you're a kid, you rip your arm open. Don't touch it, because it already hurts, right? Mm-hmm. Don't touch it. Well, I have to, son. You know, I got to get in there. I got to see what you're dealing with. No, don't touch it. Well, you don't touch it. They used to tell you, right? If you don't touch it, that infection's going to get worse. It's going to go to your bones. It's going to get in your blood. You're going to die, right? So I got to touch it, man. And we got a lot of stuff we can take care of you. It's going to hurt, but you're going to get better. And that's all you need to hear sometimes. But whether it's self-inflicted, I was riding my bike and I did a dumb stunt, or a car hit me. Either way, I got a bad arm. So now we got to deal with the wound. There's always time to self-reflect on the wounds, but you have to stop the bleeding, man.
Here's a really good analogy. When our son was little, he broke his hand.
Yeah.
And he was probably, 9 maybe?
Something like that.
And he broke his hand, and the doctor said, well, you know, we can put pins in, or we can just put a cast on it, but he might not ever be able to grip a ball. Well, if we didn't go in and do all the details to fix that broken bone, he might not have been able to throw a ball. Yeah. And he still had plenty of time. So it's like the same thing with your pain. Yeah. If you don't go in and fix it completely the right way, we could have fixed his broken bone, but he would have lived with the byproduct of not fixing it the proper way, because we didn't want him to have surgery. Then, you know, he would have to live with not being able to gripping a ball. It's the same thing with pain.
Great way to say it.
If you do not fix it completely, that wound will still, you can move on and you'll feel better and you won't really feel that pain. But every once in a while, a little twinge of that will come up. It's like a scar you have, and that scar will just open slightly, you know, because when you talked about how cutting your arm open, and if you don't touch it, I thought about like, oh, wow, you know, your body would naturally heal itself. It would create skin and a barrier, but that skin would always probably be super sensitive because, you know, scars are sensitive when you have a scar, you know, but it's only a little line. But if you don't close up that open gashing wound,
it's even worse.
And you have like this big, huge scar.
Yeah. I have a bone right here that's kind of fused wrong. I'm not going to say why, but if our son didn't get his hand fixed properly, like you say, and then later in life, he's like, man, I really want to address it.
It's too late.
It's probably never too late. How much more painful and detailed and excruciating is going to be to go in there and break that and go to have reconstructive surgery and go do all that if you had not just had done it right the first time. If it's really something that you really want your mobility back.
What did that guy tell us from that one event that we did? Do it once the right way. The second time, it's more work.
Oh, he said a lazy man does twice the work. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good way to always, if you always remember that, a lazy man does twice the work. It's the same thing with healing. Like if you have a wound, I ain't going to the doctor and the dentist. I have panic attacks over it. I'm working on it. But you got to go. You got to go. And there's sometimes you got to be a big girl. You got to be a big boy. Hike them up. You got to go. You got to stop. You got to heal yourself, man. Mm-hmm. You're bleeding out. You got to face your pain. She can go with me to the doctor all she wants. But once you get to that doctor and you got to face your pain and you got to heal, nobody can do it for you. They can take you to the water, but you can't make you drink.
Right, and if you don't take care of it the first time correctly, the second time it's gonna keep coming up, and you're gonna take care of it, and it's gonna be double the work.
More rehab.
Yeah,
you're older, harder to rehab it. I mean, it's just so much more. Yeah. I mean, and the older we get, You know, it's the same thing with your mentality and your spirituality. It's never mind your physical body, all these other areas you're trying to work on. It's harder to work on these areas the older you get, because even more infliction and hard times come with you the older you get. It's not getting easier the older we get, people. I know everybody's thinking that it's all going to end up better, but this is really getting tougher as our kids get older and we see all this happening before us. We can be in denial. We need to heal ourselves. We need to heal ourselves. So enough already. You're bleeding out. I'm bleeding out. We got to get this one done. Okay?
Well, I think the important thing is there's different levels of pain.
Yeah.
You know, so like some pain is kind of easier to deal with than other pain. Some pain you can handle yourself, or some pain you have to seek help.
And some people are 5150 because they didn't get their healing.
Well, and there's so many people that suffer silently.
Yeah, oh my God. I did for decades.
It's like there's no reason to suffer silently. It's not a weak link.
Nope.
If you're suffering and you're having some really bad thoughts or bad pain that you're dealing with, like, go seek help.
The new cool and the new tough guy is self-development and being a righteous human being.
Yeah.
That's the new cool. You want to join us? Come on over here to our side. This is where it's happening. Enough already. You're bleeding out. That's the best way I can say it. It doesn't matter how much you hold it and you close it. You have to work on yourself, man. For your people's sake. You will either be an example to your people or you will be a memory. You'll be an example of what not to be, or you'll be a great memory of what to be.
Look, you only got one life. Enjoy the one you have. We don't know what comes after this life.
It might end tonight.
We just don't know.
You don't know.
You know, there's a lot of different theories, but we just don't know. So enjoy it. Don't live in this pain.
Yeah. Fix it.
Get help. Fix it.
Yep.
Find outlets. Figure out a way.
Yep.
Talk to people.
We're not telling you what to do. We're just we're trying to help you guys with what we have applied, right?
Yes.
And that's the only reason why we're doing this podcast. We're trying to be an alarm to help people and give people some optimism and some hope and something to go for. So let's go get it. Let's have a good life. Face the pain. It's the door. Start healing. Right?
That's perfect.
Okay. I mean, Jill and I are not all the way there. We're still working on all these processes, right?
Oh my gosh. I think we probably forever will be.
I got so much inside of me that I'm trying to get out, or maybe just keep inside of me that I'm going to learn how to carry. But I'm going to learn how to carry.
Well, here's the thing. You got the generational stuff. You've got childhood stuff. And then you got stuff that happens on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
You know, something could happen tomorrow. Something could happen tonight. I don't know.
But we're going to fight.
But you have to just be ready. You have to arm and prepare yourself.
That's right. So hopefully this helped you guys. We're going to keep coming at you, baby. Right? So if this helped you guys, let us know. Please let us know. And send this to anybody else that you think it might help.
Like and subscribe. And comment, if you will.
Mr. Rafael Rodarte over at Rodarte Films and Rodarte Productions is just a class act when it comes to helping us. So go check him out. He does great work. If you need any kind of video or photography work, he works with you on packages. And he's just an all-around good guy. So,
yes.
Okay. Jill Jones, have a great week.
Thanks.
I'll see you tomorrow morning for our morning walk. Check us out over there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Have a good week, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.